Hi, I'm Philip Oliver.
And I'm Andrew Oliver.
And together we're known as the Oliver Twins, and we're here at Play Blackpool and record it on RetroUnlim.
If you only knew the power of the dark side.
2, 1, 0.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And now for our final talk of Play Expo Blackpool 2018, and we've saved a good one till the end. This is going to be interesting. Any fans of Dizzy in the audience? I thought there might be.
Oh, we're not in the audience.
Well, please give a very warm welcome to Philip and Andrew Oliver, the Oliver Twins.
Right, we're going to stay standing because it's kind of a little bit easier to talk, and we've prepared a presentation. Some of you may have seen us do presentations before.
You might see some of the same slides.
You might see, but yeah, we've prepared some good slides. It is the same history. We kind of only got one history, really.
Yeah,
it seems to be around games.
And we worked out what the index was for this stuff, with all the good slides, and we realised that there's actually a bit too much for this presentation. So forgive us, we're going to go quite quick, but hopefully that'll be a very colourful, quick jaunt through Dizzy and various things like Spectrum Next. So.
Okay, cool. Right, we're kids of the 80s. We were born in the 60s, late 60s, where a computer would take a whole room and probably had less than 1K of memory. Grew up in the 70s, don't remember too much about that. It seemed to be a bit gaudy colours and stuff, but there were cool things like Star Trek and stuff.
And we do remember when they invented colour TV, which was quite amazing.
So, but really, sort of when it all happened for us was we were teenagers in the 80s, and that's kind of what we remember. And the big thing about the 80s, obviously, was arcade machines, such as Space Invaders, down our local quick save. Black and white screen with a nice colour tape over to give colour. And of course all the home computers, so started with things like the Commodore PET and then onto the ZX81 and all the others.
Yeah, we were definitely the geeks. There was sort of, in that time at school, there were sort of like 20, 30 like boys who were just the geeks because they got home computers, and we used to play each other's.
So, obsessed by games. It started probably in about 1980. A friend of ours had, his dad had an Apple IIe, he worked at the local college, and we found you could actually play games on it, and he had Taxman. It's Taxman, it's not Pac-Man, okay?
Everyone just used to call it every game.
And we used to go around his house all the time and play this, and we thought, we've got to get one of these. So we did a paper round, saved up enough money to get ourselves a computer. Our brother bought a ZX81 and put that on the family TV, and we started playing with it, and that was okay, but really, it just taught you needed a better computer, one with a keyboard and stuff. So we heard about the Dragon 32 coming, and at 32K of memory, colour, a decent keyboard, thought, this is it, this is wonderful. So we saved up, doing a paper round, and bought a Dragon 32 in 1982, started programming, basic listings. Actually, we wanted to play games, but actually Dragon 32 wasn't that popular, and there weren't that many games for it.
It seemed that other people were buying this sort of new computer called a Spectrum, but we ended up with Dragon 32. But it actually did us a favour, because had we had a Spectrum, we'd have done what every other kid did and just played games. Whereas we bought the Dragon 32, which didn't really have any games, but it had a really nice basic by Microsoft, and a decent keyboard and stuff, and we just had to make our own games because frankly they weren't there.
And we tried to type in listings from other computers, sort of listings, trying to get them to work on the Dragon 32, and that never worked very well at all.
But it did teach us how to program, because you type it in for a different computer, but it's basic, so it should work, shouldn't it?
Turns out it doesn't. So anyway, we wanted to get our sort of type in listings. So we managed to get our computer video games to publish one of the listings in '83. And then we entered a TV competition, the Saturday show, with a game called Strategy, which got released by Acornsoft called Gambit. We signed one of these this morning. That was a bit freaky. I haven't ever seen one of those besides the one we've got. And then after that, we just had to get our games into the shops, and we were obsessed by just making better and better games. And the real success kicked off when we met Codemasters, the darlings, in 1986. But just for a laugh, let's go and see what we looked like when we were 8:15 on telly. Because it's funny.
I bet some of you have probably seen this on our channel.
Yeah, we've got a YouTube channel.
Well, now it's time to find out who's won our computer competition. Remember a few weeks ago we asked you to design a game and send it in either as a drawing or else as a cassette. Our computer competition winners, Philip and Andrew Oliver from Trowbridge in Wiltshire. Where are they?
Those on the BBC Micro.
Let's have a look. Why don't you go either side? One either side. That's it. Somebody over with Chris. Come over here with me. That's it. That's splendid. Which is which?
I'm Philip.
Andrew and Philip. All right.
Why did you actually write it? What was the basis for it?
It wasn't very good either.
A lot of people have been trying to write arcade games in BASIC, which are far too slow, and we really thought we couldn't get one sort of a high enough quality. So we had to turn to a slow game, sort of more advanced game. And we came up with this idea after playing some board games.
It's live national TV.
I mean, how did you actually go about designing the game and actually putting it into the computer? Do you have any problems as you put it together?
Well, I wrote it on paper and my brother typed it in.
It's called the program.
Mistakes. And after sort of a week of work, we managed to iron most of them out.
Great.
You've got to try and get each player into the middle, and you only like to turn a corner at the end of the dice shape, or when you hit a wall.
What do these guys prizes anyway? And I know that everybody will be green with envy. They got a nice computer of their own at home, so we said, why don't we choose another prize? And you decided to go for what's called a high-resolution monitor, whatever that is, because I suppose you don't know. Sounds like something who collects the rubbers at the end of the prize. But anyway, high-resolution monitor. There's also the possibility that
they were great monitors.
We're going to market your game and it'll actually appear on the high street. So once again, congratulations to the winners of our computer
On
competition.
Stranger Things, they have a big bang for those Commodore monitors. It's really cool. So, over the next few years, we started on BASIC, which I'm sure a lot of you have played around with, but we did find it lacked speed, as it said there, so we needed to get into assembler, and at first that was on the BBC Micro, which had a method of actually typing code into a basic listing, which was really good, so you could do most of your program in BASIC, but then change little bits into machine code, which was so good, and that's really helped us learn how to do assembler, which is kind of machine code. And then with that, enabled us to be able to do action games. So the first one was KV, which Acornsoft was supposed to take it, but they didn't, so eventually it was published by Players. But then, although we were starting to get games published, they weren't really selling very well. And
It's okay, it didn't matter, because this was effectively our sixth form.
Yeah.
This is what we were doing in the sixth form.
Yeah.
So, but the interesting thing is, we were frustrated because we had these computers, but we couldn't do any graphics and we couldn't move sprites around the screen. So we sort of made a little basic art package and then thought, well, we'll sell that actually, because there must be other people frustrated that they can't just do art on these computers because it didn't exist. And then we were frustrated that the people with the Commodore 64s, where are you, had hardware sprites. And it was actually quite difficult to move sprites around the screen. So we ended up sort of writing a routine to move characters around the screen, and then thought, well, other people will want to do this, so we'll make it really good, and then we can sell it.
it was middleware.
But yeah, it was early middleware, because we were trying to make tools so that we could make games, and effectively these were sort of like attempts of us making little games, but sort of making a package to make games, which actually served us quite well in the years.
It did, because actually all of those Spectrum Amstrad games were all done with Panda sprites. Not easy art so much, because I think was it OCP Art Studio came out, and we started Melbourne Jewel. It could have been that one. Okay. Anyway, as a result, we in September '86, we had to prove to our parents that we could take a year out from going to university and try to make a go of making computer games and try and get paid for them. The first one was Super Robin Hood. It's taken about a month to write on the Amstrad. It went straight to #1, everybody was delighted with it, we were delighted with it, and we thought we need to follow this one up. So very, very quickly, we then followed it up with Ghost Hunters and Grand Prix Simulator and Pro Ski and Dizzy and all the others.
The plan was always to sort of get a game a month, but it was probably more like 6 weeks, but we still managed to do a fair number. Although, in our estimation of trying to get a game a month, it was probably never the fact that we'd try and get it on all formats as well. So we generally wrote on the Amstrad first, then copied it across the Spectrum, and then Codemasters went and got people to copy it across to the Commodore 64, sometimes on the Atari,
ST and Amiga.
and then on, the ST and Amiga. I was thinking of the other Atari, 2600, that one. Whatever that one is. I remember that was 2600. Oh, something like that. Right, anyway, moving on, because we do have too many slides. Where did Dizzy come from?
So, yeah, so Dizzy was actually the third platformer we were doing. So the first one was Super Robin Hood, went spectacularly successful. We thought the idea of playing a character which could kind of shoot projectile weapons was a really good idea, and lots of timing puzzles, so everybody was on a timing thing. And we thought that would just work really well. It did. I have to say the background was a bit gaudy, but we were trying to get as much colour into the background as possible. And it was also, the bricks changed as you went up the levels of the castle, so if you turned the bricks off, you couldn't tell what level of the castle you were at. So we thought, oh no, people will need this, and they want this, but it was actually very gaudy. But we put an option to switch it off. So after we've done that, we decided to do Ghost Hunters, which was basically take the same code. We're quite good at using code. Take the same kind of code, take the same kind of mechanics and everything, but just change the theme. There was a little-known film at the time called Ghostbusters, which might have slightly inspired us. And we thought, wouldn't it be cool to go inside a haunted mansion, run around a haunted mansion, being hassled by ghosts and skeletons and skulls and everything, and basically you've got to find your brother and rescue him from this haunted mansion. And that was the idea there. So same kind of game, just a little bit of different gameplay. We tried to put a two-player mode in there. It kind of worked better as a two-player than a one-player, sadly, because of us trying to force in the two-player mode. But you live and learn, and it went out pretty quick. And that's actually when we started doing Spectrum's games, because Super Robin Hood was taking quite a long time to get converted by a programmer at Codemasters. And we happened to mention to the darlings, wow, it's like, he's taking so long, it took us a month to write it, he's taken like 6 months to convert it. And they said, well, do your own. So they actually sent us a Spectrum as a gift, saying, well, do your own. So in fact, Ghost Hunters was our first Spectrum game as well, so we ported it straight over. And then, after doing Grand Prix Simulator, we thought, right, we need to do another theme and another side-on platformer. We've done the sort of castles, we've done a haunted house, what should we do next? And we thought, wouldn't it be interesting to sort of have this really fun, cartoony world, kind of maybe a bit Hobbitish, like based on The Hobbit and stuff like this. So that's where we came up with Dizzy.
Yep, okay, moving on.
You want to do some talking?
I will indeed. Okay, so Dizzy didn't actually sell particularly well, but then having said that, that cover artwork probably didn't help it. Because the cover artwork, if you have a look at it, is horrendous. These were all done, it was before electronic communication. At best, there may have been a fax. But we didn't.
It was a phone call.
But we didn't have a fax, so yeah. Yeah, so we sort of described the game as like a sort of eggish looking character running and jumping around, got some caves, some enemies, and then the artist came back with that. And
first we saw it was when we go down W. Smith's.
Yeah, so we didn't see it, and it's like, ooh, right, okay. Anyway, so it didn't sell particularly well, but what we did find is that Codemasters got lots of fan letters, but they were always loaded fan letters. I love your game, but I'm stuck on this puzzle, which was kind of funny, and but they just kept on getting letters. And so when we go up to visit them in Banbury at that point, they would sort of say, can you deal with these like fan letters? But they're just asking questions about how you solve the game. So we sort of gave them a cheat sheet of how to solve the Dizzy game. But then it was just continuous, and we thought, well, it does seem to be an awful lot of people writing in all the time, so maybe we'll make another one. So that's where Treasure Island Dizzy came from. And yes, as mentioned yesterday, there was an horrendous bug just towards the end, so we gave you 1 life to get over that horrible bug.
People like a challenge.
Yeah, it was just a logical bug in the fact that there were puzzles that were unsolvable if you did certain things.
And that's because we were trying to make a non-linear storyline out of this one.
Yeah, so, but then we were proudest of the next one, Fantasy World Dizzy, because we thought, right, non-linear storylines are really, really good, but you've got to really think about them carefully to make sure that you don't mess things up by doing things in the wrong order. You want to do things in lots of different orders. So Philip's usually got the prop, but it's in a museum at the moment, which is kind of funny. For sort of, he hand draws all these kind of maps out, and we sort of play it on paper, sort of moving little tokens and things.
We were actually doing some of that this morning.
We were doing some rounds, which we probably shouldn't have been doing, but anyway. So Fantasy World Dizzy, we also introduced the family. We felt that in the other games we were a bit lonely. That's partly because of hardware restrictions of like...
It was shipwrecked on a desert island. It was fine.
We put it into the story, but having lots of characters and moving around the screen and stuff, but actually, to be fair, they don't move around the screen, so you can afford the characters, and it gives you a lot more story elements, and it was quite easy to do story because, well, creating story in text boxes was quite easy.
So this is, yeah, we're most proud of the Fantasy World Dizzy. We made a lot of good calls on that one.
Good call. There was one call that we didn't take that we always look back and regret, and that is that in our other games, because we'd alternate a sports game with a platform game, or a Dizzy game in fact is what it turned out to be, and in our sports games we used to always put speech. We'd go 3, 2, 1, go! And all that in Grand Prix Simulator and BMX and stuff. So we had all the speech and stuff, but we didn't think speech was a good place to put in a character game.
Oh.
I mean,
should have done that.
We really should have done that. It's like because
we had lots of memory because by this time most people were playing on a sort of Spectrum.
Yeah,
sort of,
and we look back
28K. And we fitted this in 34K.
So we did all these speech bubbles for them and trying to give them personality, and we never actually thought, let's record all the speech for them. I mean, it would have been a bit scratchy, but it probably would have been like the first sort of talking characters in games, whereas actually our sports games just had voiceover. But we always saw that. Anyway, I digress. Anyway, nice friendly characters.
That's what the map looked like.
Yeah, big old map. Moving on. So we also allowed Dizzy to start in his own arcade games because we had something where people really liked the Dizzy character. We had these story adventures, but we wanted to do some other simple games, like Pac-Man, because we could see...
We loved Pac-Man.
We absolutely loved Pac-Man, and we could see that there were a few attempts to do Pac-Man on home computers, and they were always a bit rubbish, or mainly they were a bit difficult, and we were thinking, it's a lot of young kids that are buying Spectrums. There should be some games out there that are just quite simple and easy to get into. So we thought, should we just go back and do like a simple Pac-Man with Dizzy? Well, it actually started, and this is a funny story that's in our book. Yeah, it was our version of a game jam to just see if we could make a game. I think we'd finished a previous game and we wanted to see...
we were in the middle of a game, but it was Friday night, and we were saying we could write Pac-Man over the weekend, and Monday morning we'd be back on the main game that we're supposed to be doing. So it wasn't hit the schedule, wasn't hit the schedule at all.
So it was a bit of a game jam, and then it was kind of funny because we showed it to Codemasters and they said, oh, we can do a promotion with this. There's a restaurant chain called Happy Eater, which was kind of a rip-off of Pac-Man. And so they went down trying to get the rights to Happy Eater, and in the end it was like, oh no.
We'll just stick this in.
Just stick this in.
It'll sell loads. And actually it did. That was a good earning weekend.
Okay. So anyway, so yeah, he did start in a few different arcade games.
Anyone played a Dizzy game?
Yeah.
Just checking. Put us all down. Every game's better than Dragons. Man, we wrote a lot of Dizzy games. I think too many, maybe. Actually, to be fair, we didn't write Crystal Kingdom. Some
No, I didn't. Okay. So lots and lots of Dizzy games, and then
we moved on to the console.
Yeah, towards the end of those, some of those last Spectrum games, we didn't actually create because we moved sideways onto consoles, onto the NES, making fantastic Dizzy, and Master System,
so long.
Mega Drive.
About eight months or something.
Yeah, 8 months for a game. It was a huge undertaking. We were trying to cram all the other Dizzy games all into one because suddenly these games were going to be quite expensive on Nintendo. So, but yeah, it did pretty well. Won this award. I'm proud to say that we won this award when we were up against Zelda. So, best NES game.
Best graphic adventure.
Best graphic adventure in 91.
Yeah,
so. But we were unlicensed, so yeah, Zelda did a little bit better. Right, anyway, moving quickly on. So we said that other people started writing these games. There was another company in Leamington Spa, which is where we live and Codemasters are, Big Red Software, who wrote quite a few of these games. We later employed most of those people into our company, Blitz Games. Moving quickly on. Okay, little selection. Unfortunately, it was sort of killed off, but yeah. Never mind. You could write a book about that one. Right. Anyway, what's this one?
This is when we tried to relaunch it.
Yeah, we tried to talk to Codemasters about making a new Dizzy game back on PlayStation, beginning of PlayStation 2.
Far away lived a family of friends called the Young Folk. They had many excellent adventures. Excellent. I get it. Yeah. Anyway, evil wizard, jealous, spells, forever, blah, 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 blah. 10 years passed, and the spell weakened enough for a great hero to awaken. His name, Dizzy, Prince of the Young Folk.
Yeah, so we'd set up Blitz Games and had written various games, things like The Little Mermaid and Lilo and Stitch, and then we wanted to go back.
Frogger and Action Man.
Yeah, we wanted to go back and do a Dizzy game, so that was a little pitch that we did to Codemasters to see if they were interested.
And the answer was the PlayStation 2 is never going to go mass market, so...
Well, not Dizzy on
No, the PlayStation 2 is never going to go mass market. Because this was the beginning of the PlayStation 2. It was. Was there?
I wasn't in that meeting.
I do business meetings.
Right, okay. But years later, one of the original programmers of the ST and Amiga version of Prince of the Oak Folk was setting up his company again. He was Big Red Software, and he was setting up as another company which I can't remember. Anyway, the point is, this was the start of the mobile phone revolution. So he'd got hold of an iPhone and wanted to do a demo of an iPhone to say you can actually make games on this new iPhone thing. So he grabbed all his old Amiga code for Prince of the Oak Folk, got it all running, showed it to us. We were quite impressed by it and said, yeah, go to Codemasters and see if they'll let you publish it.
They improved the graphics quite a bit as well.
Yeah, so so this came out on the iOS and Android with the sort of blessing of Codemasters, which was interesting.
We then tried doing a Kickstarter sort of a year later because we thought maybe with the sort of advent of crowdfunding there'd be a way to sort of crowdfund the piece and find out if people wanted it. We put the pitch together, did a Kickstarter, but actually we sort of discovered that we weren't very good on social media. It turns out that to do Kickstarter you have to sort of have a community of people that sort of...
You needed a big following, which didn't really have.
Which we kind of... Twitter existed and Facebook and stuff, but we weren't using either. We didn't really kind of know about it. We just said, well, we could do a Kickstarter. We didn't realise how important it was to actually build up a community first before you launch one of these things. So sadly it failed, but it did actually result in some really nice material.
Yeah, so we'll show you some of the things that were created from it. So we went back recreating the characters. What we wanted to do is do something that didn't compete with absolute modern day games. I mean, we can't write a Mario game out of this, but something that was much better than came before. So we were going for some sort of stylized 2.5D graphics. So we went back to all the characters, redesigned the characters. The characters were all going to be in 3D, so they were being worked up. This was a little render of one of the sort of sceneries. So there were going to be like set-piece stages that were modelled in 3D. So rather than flick screen, it was set scenes that you move around. Little stages. We thought it was a cool, new, stylised way of doing things that wouldn't be massively expensive and would be quite nice and a bit timeless as well. Anyway.
But unfortunately, we didn't really know how to run a Kickstarter campaign, so it didn't work very well, which was a bit of a shame.
Okay, so it was here back in 2015, it says there. We were on that main stage where they're singing Abbott and stuff out there. Everyone in this room. And we were literally asked to do a talk all about Dizzy, so some of the material may have been there, and if you were there, then you'd seen some of the slides before. But Philip had a load of props, and he pulled out one of the props, this big board, and he'd gone up in his loft, pulled out a load of stuff to just show off to retro fans. And we were on stage going, hang on, Wonderland Dizzy. Like, it didn't actually get launched, which was kind of a weird thing. It was like, we're looking at it and going, yeah, remember quite a lot of that. Anyway, so we found that it did exist and we had written it, and we then went and looked further in the loft. That's him looking in the loft, and we did find a disc that says Master. Unfortunately, it was source code, which is a real git to try and find a way to compile it and put it into a cartridge. If you'd have just said Master Cartridge or something. So we put that out on Kickstarter and produced that as a cartridge and put it on a website so you could play it for free, and it all went very well.
Then you can still play it for free at yofolk.com or wonderlanddizzy.com actually. Anybody got that cartridge? Yeah, somebody's got the cartridge.
Okay, so we thought, well, if there was that game kicking around that we'd kind of forgotten about in the loft, I wonder if there's any other games. And so you don't take many photos of yourselves at work. I don't know. Think about it. How many photos do you have?
Well, you do these days with smartphones. It's a lot easier. But back in the day,
when
camera,
you had to take your reel of film to boots. It was rare. But we were looking around and we found some photos. And here's me at my computer programming. And we looked on there going, hang on a moment, that's none of the Dizzy games that exist. So I was definitely programming a Dizzy game that we sort of didn't recognise the title screen. So we looked further and we found yet another Dizzy game that had never been released. Because of the way things just stopped at Codemasters in '94, there was stuff that just didn't get published. So Mystery World Dizzy is, where is it now?
It's been kickstarted. I think it's got to about 700 units have been ordered and are in production, and then that's going to get shipped out to the backers in a few weeks' time.
Yeah. So that was a Nintendo Entertainment System.
NES.
Yeah, game. And I mean, one reason is that it all stopped because these games were unlicensed, and the Super NES came out, and everyone just said, don't want the old Nintendo, just want the Super NES.
It was also, I mean, the production cost of cartridges was extreme, so it was very, very expensive to produce the cartridges, and if you ended up with stock that you couldn't sell, then you were out of pocket. Even if your game was successful, you actually made quite a small margin as a publisher. So I know why Codemasters thought it was quite risky to put these things out. It was.
Yeah, so, but it was a nice game. I mean, not bad graphics for an 8-bit NES game. Nice fun game. You can play it at mysteryworlddizzy.com. So on a sort of live Nintendo emulator, which is quite cool. You can do those things nowadays. There's us playing it.
So welcome to another lesson.
We have a YouTube channel. We have a YouTube channel and we video all these things, and we play the game but talk over the game why we created it.
We don't play it very well, okay?
No. But we talk about how we created it and why we created it and some of the funny things. So if you're interested, there is a YouTube channel. Right, so, and you can play it. Right, moving quickly on. And then we talk about making real into cartridges. Yes, fine, we've done that. So Dreamworld, we found another game in the loft. Dreamworld Pokey. So this was us making a very colourful platforming game. I guess sort of like Sonic and those sort of games, out of Dizzy's little pet Pogie, who gets these massive sugar rushes. So he goes around, he's just obsessed by eating chocolate and sweets and stuff in the platforms, but he hits the limit and goes, oh my god, and he just has this massive, and he turns sort of psycho and Jekyll and Hyde and goes ballistic, which is kind of fun, and that was because Sonic goes on the ballistic run and we
And you get power pills in Pac-Man.
Yeah, so we decided to do that. So that game was found and done as a Kickstarter and into a cartridge.
Yeah, 800 or 900.
Yeah, so that went out.
And now it's being converted to the Spectrum Next, and then people were here at the talk yesterday.
Yeah, so that is running now on the Spectrum Next. So believe it or not, that is a Spectrum Next. But that is using the enhanced graphics mode of the Spectrum Next.
With scrolling, yeah, well obviously. Does that look like a Spectrum to you?
Right, okay, so here's a little video running of Pogi running on the Spectrum Next. Do I have to click it? I do have to click. Okay. It's not finished, it still has things to be done. Okay, right, cut it off. I'm just conscious of time. Right, so what next for Dizzy? Then something else came up. It was the Spectrum Next. It was the fact that people said, well, why not create another like Dizzy game? But originally, one of the insults, you get a lot of insults when you do a Kickstarter. Watch out for that. So we had asked for, I think it was £250,000 to write another Dizzy game. But the point is, we were a company going to employ a lot of artists and stuff to create a game.
Guess what? They want to be paid.
People do want to be paid, and that's completely acceptable. But one of the things that I find most insulting is that some comment on Kickstarter, which really sort of got to us, was somebody said, I don't believe they're asking for $250,000. This is an absolute rip-off. They're just trying to make money out of us. This is so greedy. I seem to remember the originals were written by 2 guys in a back bedroom in like a month. This is ridiculous. Why are they charging $250,000? And it's like, hang on, times have moved on. And we're paying lots of artists who are coming in and they've got mortgages and families and this is their
and
job.
there's been a team of 25 people making a 3D game.
Yeah,
that's what it would have cost.
Yeah, so, and no, it probably cost a lot more actually. We just wanted to know there was enough interest out there. But then, having said that, then the Spectrum Next came along and we were kind of like, well, actually, we could probably sort of stretch to doing a Dizzy game on a Spectrum Next.
Just as a hobby rather than anybody having to get paid.
And there's a lot of hobbyists out there that could work with us. There's people out there making Dizzy games. If you go to yokefolk.com, you can see hobbyists making Dizzy games. And we thought, well, we'll work with some of those guys. And there was some guys, Dimitri. Actually, it's a further slide. I should probably, we'll get to that slide in a minute. But we did a funny sort of little Kickstarter video. Was this a Kickstarter video?
No, this was to support the Spectrum Next Kickstarter, yes.
Yeah, to say that we'll make another Dizzy game.
If the Next is successful, the Spectrum Next is successful, we'll make a Dizzy game.
Yeah, so we're funding the video. Well, I'm feeling we're not in 11 anymore. We can't act. Just bear that in mind.
Everything had to be first take as well, because we were against time.
Hi, we're here in Malmö, Sweden, for Nordic 17.
Yeah, and now that the Kickstarter campaign for the Spectrum Next has flown past its $500,000 mark, that means that we're committed to designing a new Dizzy game. And we're pretty excited to give you some more details. And some famous people staying here too. Look at this. We've got Cliff Richards and Dave Junior.
Here we've got Julie Garland. But enough about that, let's go to the library.
This was a very dark library.
So, as many Dizzy fans will know, we often take our inspiration from classic stories.
Yeah, like Jack and the Beanstalk or Alice in Wonderland.
So what better place than a library to look for our next inspiration? Not that one, actually.
Oh, Stephen King. Oh.
Yeah, that's not going to work.
Okay, a different one. Okay, what about this one? The wonderful
The Wonderful Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum, written in 1900, without copyright.
Yeah, that's got some needy characters, always looking for you to find things for them. Sounds like a dizzy game.
And it's a new adventure in a new land.
Yeah, somewhere over the rainbow.
We'll have all the sort of classic characters, the four witches, obviously the first one dies horribly when a house lands on her, but we'll have the Scarecrow, the Tin Woodman, the Cowardly Lion,
we're wearing the same shirt.
And of course
we've got other characters as well that we've been thinking about, because it's a sort of mashup of various things with the general theme being around the Wizard of Oz.
And of course, we're kids of the 80s, so there'll be a bit of nostalgia and a bit of fun jokes about the 80s and the kind of technology.
So we've got a logo as well.
So we're very pleased to reveal that the new game is going to be called Wonderful Dizzy. Well, we must also say that all of this is done as a hobby by all of those involved, and we've got some very talented people, and a great big thank you to all of those that are going to help us, and Codemasters for allowing this to happen.
Yeah, so it's exciting, isn't it?
It's actually slightly scary, to be fair. It's been 25 years since we've last designed a Dizzy game, but I guess with the 30th anniversary, it did seem the right time to do it.
Yeah, we've got lots of ideas, we've got plenty of time to think of ideas for the new Dizzy game.
And of course, the Spectrum Next just seemed the ideal time, and we're really hoping that lots of people back the campaign and that it's a huge success, and everybody who does will receive a free copy of Wonderful Dizzy.
Moving on, quick. Right. Okay, so a little bit of an update. Work still in progress, frankly. But we all remember the humble Spectrum. That's what we remember the Spectrum as, a funny little rubber keyboard. Here it is. It had various different guises over the years because it was really popular and it did last for quite a long time. And as Amstrad took it over, they wanted to remove the sort of funny little keyboard and make a proper keyboard. But we love it in all its guise, and it is fantastic that the Kickstarter has been so successful to bring it back in Spectrum Next. So, yep. Okay, so we remember the Spectrum for those classics, and I'm sure, come on, all of you can remember like all of those, and those are the sort of the classics that certainly we remember, and most people remember. We wrote a few Dizzy games ourselves, a few Spectrum games ourselves, so that's the ones that we wrote. A fair few. We were a little bit busy for those years.
It was a good time.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the team. I thought we'd wait for this slide, so Philip.
Oh yeah, sure. So what actually happened was, Easter, just whilst the campaign for Spectrum Next was on, the day before Easter, I got a Facebook message from Dimitri. Here he is, Dimitri. Basically just saying, by the way, we're going to launch a new version of Crystal Kingdom Dizzy tomorrow, just thought you'd like to know. I'm not really asking permission or anything, but we don't mind, so I was like, oh, cool. I didn't actually think anything more of it, because quite often sort of get kind of messages of like, oh, I got Dizzy phone game and stuff. Didn't think anything more of it. And then Easter morning came round, and I had loads and loads of sort of Facebook messages and tweets and stuff about this kind of new Dizzy game that had been launched. I say new. I was like, where's Crystal Kingdom? This game already exists on the Spectrum, so how new can it be? Anyway, there's a news article with a video in it of it being videoed, and I looked at it, it's like, wow, that looks really slick, what you've managed to get out of a Spectrum. It was running at sort of 50 hertz, so really, really smooth, non-flickering sprites, masked sprites, loads and loads of great colour.
They rewritten from scratch.
They rewritten the whole
game
and improved it, but to the original design. And I was like, wow, that's amazing what you've managed to get out of a Spectrum. So I ended up having a conversation with him on Easter Day. He just saying, that is amazing what you've managed to do. So then when we were talking about the Spectrum Next, and just the concept of like, God, we could actually sort of write a game for Spectrum Next. Yeah, but we're not going to code it. We're not going to let it code, it's quite tricky. We haven't got the tool chain in place anymore. But wait a minute, these guys, the guys I was just talking to about a week ago, they just did Crystal Kingdom. What if we gave them a full design? We absolutely documented absolutely everything, and we gave it to them. So I contacted them and actually said, would you like to make the official new Dizzy game? It'll be just a hobby thing, we can't kind of pay you for it, because we're going to just give it out for free. And these guys said, absolutely, yes, we'd love to. which is why we were then able to then do that video in Malmo. It was a bit of a rush job, it was all first takes. And basically the people who made Crystal Kingdom Dizzy have got back together to basically do all the graphics and the audio and the programming, whilst me and Andrew, living on a yacht, not really. It's actually on the River Thames. It's our mum's birthday, and the two of us were actually together.
We took over a tree on the boat on the River Thames.
So here you go, no, look, why don't we just take a funny photo and say that we're designing the game? Actually, we didn't get a lot of design done that day, and that was actually 11 o'clock in the morning, there were glasses of wine there, and we really didn't get a lot done that day. Yeah, so all of these people are giving their time for free to actually help make the game.
And one of them's in the room. No, at the back.
Gerard isn't.
No,
he was yesterday.
Sorry, yes. Right, okay. Okay, so over the years, Dizzy has progressed. There's always been a thing about hat or no hat. And you might notice in that PlayStation 2 video, he looks incredibly bald in some, so...
what are you saying?
Yeah, I know, we should wear hats. Probably should. But it is something where we always used to have the illustrations with hats, but in the game it never had a hat. And there's one thing we said, can we try and get Dizzy to wear a hat in the game? And people said, what, seriously, in that number of pixels? But yeah, Gerard's done a good job of that.
I was going to say, Gerard, when I said, can I have a new Dizzy and he's got to have a hat and a backpack, he goes, you're having a laugh, aren't you? And I was like, no, he absolutely has to have a hat and a backpack. It's really, really important to us. If we're going to improve on what we did before, he's got to. And Gerard did a great job.
So, a lot of the graphics are done by Pitt or Piotr. Is he
Piotr
from
Poland?
Yeah,
so he'd been doing lots of fan art. So this fan art's actually the book and stuff. So I got in touch with him and said, can you sort of do us some graphics and some new characters and stuff? So he's done the concept for the characters and some and the game screen and everything.
So that's
Piotr's box art, and then there's some story screens. There are more story screens which. Well, I don't think
and they're being lovingly put into attributes as we speak. You've got to try and get those all into those colourful characters.
I think it was the resolution they actually had more issue with.
Yeah.
They're going, yeah, they look lovely at that resolution.
So it's got a nice little storyboard going with it. We developed the characters, even though ultimately the characters are quite small on screen.
Oh, but you imagine them to look like this.
Yeah, it's worth going back and saying, well, okay, so we're going to have the cast of Dizzy and his family as the cast of the Wizard of Oz, so therefore, who takes on which role? And it does work surprisingly well. It does feel like sort of Dylan and Dozy, like Dylan's a Tin Man and Dozy's a Scarecrow. Doors, the
Good Witch of the South,
yeah,
Daisy, Good Witch of the North.
Yeah, anyway, it sort of does work surprisingly.
Zax has had a bit of a sex change, but...
Hey, don't worry about that. Yeah, he's suddenly an evil witch rather than an evil wizard. But anyway, yeah, so they were worked up from black and white drawings, and then we've got a new cast of characters that seem to fit the storyline quite well.
Wonky Donkey, Rosie Riddler are new, Box, Munchkin Mare.
Yep, okay, moving quickly on. So Philip's been very busy, haven't you, Philip?
This was
hand-drawn all of the map, exactly as he used to do, actually, to be fair.
They were a little bit bigger this time.
Yeah, he used to pull out the graph paper, work out a screen, and say, right, this screen's going to be, I don't know, the inside of a tavern or something, and work out, or on your character mapped graph paper, sketching it all out. The only difference is now that we scan it all up and stick it into Excel and start putting all things on digitally. So we used to just stick it on
big sheets of board or wallpaper.
Yeah. So, but it is all lovingly hand drawn. That'll probably turn up in a museum at some point. Right.
I should have brought it today, to be fair.
You probably should. Yeah. It's all finished now.
Yeah, it's all finished. And it's in a little blue folder on my desk.
Yeah, I think it's about 84 screens or something.
It's about that. There is a map coming out, count them.
Oh yeah, okay. So those screens are then given across to Gerard, who is...
And Dimitri.
And Dimitri, who are turning them into Spectrum screens, making sure they all work. And here's a video of how the game is coming along. Do I have to click it to go?
This is actually in the classic 48K mode. There's going to be basically two modes you can play the game in. You can play it in classic, original 48K, and 128K, sorry. and it will work.
Someone worked well on those attributes.
And so this is actually running in that mode, and it's not using the next advanced features, but there will be a version which uses the next advanced features as well. So as you can see, look, it's actually quite fluid. There's no flicker there, and it's got a lovely mask around it, which is really good. A classic Dizzy, collect the objects. Out into the colourful world. It's no place like home.
Yeah, a little bit too colourful, possibly. Okay, and if you know the real story of Wonderful World of Oz, which we have now read, is actually quite different from the film. It has a lot of red brick road as well as yellow brick road, but I think the film people just ignored the red brick road.
The red brick road is cool, and we needed lots of dark places to go, so we've got a lot of red brick road.
Yeah. Anyway.
It also works very well because the whole map of the Wonderful Wizard of Oz, it actually works on a north, south, east, west. There are 4 castles at each corner with witches in each. The north and the south are good witches, and the east and the west are bad witches. And the east witch was visiting the Munchkins. Actually, I'm sure she wasn't visiting them in a nice way. When your huts landed on her and killed her, which is why
terrorising them.
Wicked Witch of the West turns up, but the Wicked Witch of the West can't hurt Dizzy, even though she wants to, because Dizzy has picked up the red boots. Not slippers, boots.
Right, anyway, so, so then Philip drew all the screens. I had the job of laying them all out. And this used to be done on wallpaper, it's now an Excel spreadsheet. So you just chuck all the screens on and work out the links of where you can walk between and from, and where you pick up objects and take them. We used to do it all with counters, but like you only need a bit of a wind and
or a dog.
Yeah, and the little paper counters go everywhere. So now I've got little icons. So all the objects were sort of like dumped up here, and it's like, right, okay, we're going to use a key. Look, there's an obvious bland key. Put it by the door. No. There's the door where we're going to find it from, but it's going to find there, and it's going to be taken there to open that door.
The crystal tiara for the Good Witch of the North.
Yeah, that's a long walk, that one.
Yeah, I have to say,
but then you have to try and play it through and try and get your head round.
You have to play it through on the sort of Excel spreadsheet. In fact, we were doing a little bit of that.
That's what we were doing this morning.
Oh my god!
I think it's nearly finished, but we're sort of debugging the logic of whether you can get completely stuck anywhere. And it's kind of not surprising in the fact that it's a little bit of a spaghetti mess. So we've got to make sure that when people play it, they don't get stuck. Right, moving quickly.
I think it's okay.
Okay, so that's what hope is coming soon. And yeah, I mean, look at that work they put in those attributes. That is quite clever for a Spectrum. That is quite clever. Right, okay, so
shall we do some questions?
Oh yes, that is it. Sorry,
that's it.
That is it.
Blasting through it. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. There was quite a lot to get through. Do you have some questions?
Yes. Oh, he's coming with a mic. You can shout loud, but
you gotta give him that on the way as well.
I thought that was for me.
No, you didn't get one, mate. You didn't ask a question. Except for was that for me?
That's a question, technically.
I'd like to know what made you think of designing him as an egg in the first place.
Oh, that question's been asked so many times.
It was a big face, it wasn't an egg. It's just everybody else called it an egg, so eventually you go, fine, it's a flipping egg. But what happened was, the way the design came about was when we were doing Ghost Hunters, I was quite frustrated that when I was drawing the little running man, which I have to say I did look at Mission Impossible on the C64 with a freeze frame on the video, which was rubbish. I thought that'd be helpful, but freeze framing a VHS videotape doesn't work that well, to be fair. Trying to work out all the little animations. But I was really annoyed that the head of the guy is 3 pixels by 3 pixels with 3 possible colours. You actually can't do a lot with that. It's like Pinocchio or not. It's like, that's about the only choice you have.
Yeah, a single pixel for a nose makes it look like a massive nose or no nose.
Yeah, so I can't remember what I went with. But anyway, I was just quite frustrated. I was in Pandas Park. I was just quite frustrated that I couldn't get kind of any expression on this character. And so anyway, I was just, I just drew a really big face inside the space that I had available for the sprite. And I just drew a really big face, and then I kind of, there you go, see, I can do a face on that. It's just like, that shows expression. And then I was kind of playing and making him sad and a little wiggly. And just messing around, and then there was a bit of space at the side, so I sort of said, oh, I'll put some arms on, I'll put some feet on. It's like, that actually looks quite fun. I'll make it bob up and down, yeah. Hey Andrew, what do you think of this? And he's like, that looks really fun. We'll come back to that. And the fact that he tumbles is because in Panda Sprites, there's a feature that, and it was put in there for things like if you're trying to make an asteroid type game, or kind of like a car racing game, there's a feature in there which could rotate sprites automatically. So it's like, let's stick Dizzy through the automatic sprite rotation and leave it for a few hours and see what we come back to. It's like, oh, that looks interesting. Oh well. And then when we came back to do our third platform adventure game, we still had this sort of little rotating character. And it's like, okay, that's interesting. Let's see if we can put the jump. Let's make him use that for jump. And then, of course, it naturally followed that anybody that jumps like that will get pretty dizzy quite quickly, which is where the name came from. We didn't call it an egg, it was everybody else that called it an egg. Eventually you just go, I'm fed up of arguing, it's an egg if you want it to be an egg now. It's like...
That story and all others, I'm going to plug it.
All the money's going to charity.
Yeah, that's right. We did this book for fun, sort of a year or two ago. We don't chuck anything away, and that's why we can find old games that we didn't get published in our loft, because we like Dizzy really, a bit sort of kleptomaniacs or whatever. You just hoard everything, but it does mean that you have a lot of quantity for when you want to sort of bring it all back out. And it was a really fun exercise to just sort of document everything.
And make everything really concise and entertaining.
Yeah, so that is probably one page of the book
about
where
that's on sale over at Console Passion.
And they're giving all the money to a children's charity in Blackpool. So because whenever these are sold, it's always given to charity. So
there you go. That was the plug that we were asked to give.
And we'll go over and sign them. So after this, we'll go over there, and if you buy them, we'll sign them. Anyway, so there you go.
Any other questions? Just wondering why he's got boxing gloves on.
Boxing gloves.
Well, hang on. So the space I had left and the number of colours I had left, okay? So this was an Amstrad. I'd only got a little bit of space left on either side of my sprite, and I had white or green or red.
Yeah.
They were my three colours I had a choice of.
Yeah,
so he could have had green gloves, I guess.
I mean, it was just...
White gloves, maybe.
It's just
but I thought, wouldn't it look cool? Actually, I think I did the boots first. And the boots clearly had to be red. They look much better in red. And then it was like,
It's all to do with it.
Kind of weighting of colour.
It's the attributes of a spectrum, and we thought, we want to give it some colour.
Yeah. Well, you always want to get as much colour in there as possible. You've only got 3 to play with, use all 3, crikey.
But there was also the other thing. I think it's Disney that always says that.
So actually, when we drew, I'll just say when we drew them, first of all, you couldn't draw fingers anyway, so it's like, well, they're kind of gloves. And I think later people started calling them boxing gloves. Might have been us, but
I think it's Disney that say
could have called them mitts.
Whenever they do humans in cartoons, they always do one less finger, because they said if you actually give humans the right number of fingers in cartoons, it looks like a bunch of bananas. So nearly all cartoon characters actually have less fingers, because it just looks quite awkward and fiddly.
And that's when you're playing with more than 3 by 3 pixels.
When they've got high resolution. Damn it. So
I had 3 by 3 pixels to play with.
Yeah, so it was just a sort of clump on the end, and we just thought, why not?
We'll call them gloves. Boxing gloves are red. Yeah, we'll call them boxing gloves.
There's a trend these days, I think, for sort of gamers to go into the nth degree about their characters and sort of all the details about them. You have these massive wiki sites, giving all history and stuff. Is there anything you've ever thought of, writing up for Dizzy and going into the mechanics of who Dizzy actually is?
It's in a book, mate.
Does he
no, we wouldn't go to great lengths.
Because I mean, one of the beauties of sort of retro games is that they just get straight into the game, don't they? I mean, you go like 1 or 2 story screens and bang, you're in. And when I say story screens, it's like 30 words or something, and you're into the game. And Dizzy doesn't have a massive backstory, to be fair. We've never written one, and kind of don't really want to write a massive backstory. And in some ways, it kind of locks you away from doing things, because people go, oh, that doesn't fit. And it's like, look, it just is. He got shipwrecked, okay? Yeah. Well, where was he going? Does it matter?
His story evolves throughout all the different games. That's what he stands for. And why does that story come about? Because they made good puzzles at the time.
Yeah. and when you only had sort of, whatever it was, 34K to fit into the games, you don't really have a lot of space for this. I have to say, the new game, one of the things we love about sort of Dizzy is the sort of the storylines and the dialogue and the characters. So I will say the new games actually feature quite a lot of dialogue, to the point that the programmer was, well, Dimitri, the artist, he was actually warning me the other day to, will I steady down on the amount of scripts and dialogue between the characters. But I just thought it was all really funny.
There's a lot of good jokes in there.
Yeah. So there are a lot of good jokes in there. I think so.
We've got time for one more question.
When I was little, I can remember an obstacle in the game. It was having to ride a shark fin.
Yep, I saw that.
Across the board to the other side. Who came up with that?
I remember the fact that in Fantasy World,
there's the crocodile.
There's the crocodile, and you have to jump on the crocodile's back, but you have to make sure you've got the rope, and you've got about 2 seconds before he turns around and snaps you. So you have to jump on his back with the rope, and then quickly
tie his snout.
Tie his snout, and then he'll just.
But that doesn't answer the shark fin question.
That doesn't answer the shark fin question. But I think it was just generally, let's do the same puzzle again type of thing. But I can't actually remember.
And we've used boats a few times, so let's kind of make it a bit more interesting. I'd imagine it was me, but it might have been somebody over a Big Red.
Yeah, it was the Crystal Kingdom.
Pete Ranson, maybe?
I don't know. Honestly, don't know.
Is this the Crystal Kingdom one?
You're fairly limited on the sort of puzzles you can do. Right? When you're picking up things and putting down things to create puzzles.
I mean, at the end of the day, every Dizzy puzzle is just a key in the door at the end of the day.
Yeah.
We just dress them up and call them different things.
Yeah, I'm sure it was inspired by Jaws or something.
Yeah, Jaws.
I remember it the most because it's the one I died the most on.
Yeah, that's some...
Sharks. We're just trying to teach kids to stay away from sharks.
Although usefully they can tweet nowadays, which is really, really useful. Sharks tweet.
What are you talking about?
I digress, but they shoot harpoon things, little trackers, into sharks, and if sharks go close to beaches,
they tweet the people on the beach.
They tweet the people on the beach.
I'm coming to get you.
There's a shark in the area, and it's actually the sharks themselves that are tweeting.
Nice.
It's a really funny thing.
I love technology. Cool. Okay, I think we're probably going to wrap it up there.
We are, ladies and gentlemen, that does bring us to the end of
a limited number of books over at Console Passion. I say limited, I think we're down to about 15.
And as the guys say, they will sign them if you buy them for charity. So please, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together.